Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Former DA KwaZulu-Natal Chief Whip Zwakele Mncwango has now confirmed that he has officially parted ways with the DA. This comes after his departure from the provincial legislature last week. He joins us now with more on this. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Mncwango. Thank you so much for your time. You've had quite a dramatic few weeks. Talk to us about, the steps that you had to consider before making this decision.
Yeah, good afternoon to you, Mpo, and the viewers at home. It is true. I have resigned from legislature Wednesday, and yesterday morning I've resigned from the DA. It wasn't really an easy decision, even from the first one. But as I said previously, I really wanted to do some introspection and soul-searching, whether do I feel part of the DA or not now, after 21 years serving the organization? But I'm grateful for the opportunities that were given to me by the DA. I think I was one of the privileged young people who were given opportunities to grow and to be where I am today. But as time goes by, one have realized that new leadership have emerged nationally and with its own values, where I really felt that the culture of controlling people, where we can't really have freedom to express our views, to have an opinion, to speak out your mind, and I think that's really a core of democracy, where people are able to differ within boundaries of respect, obviously. But it must be acceptable for people to have different views without being suppressed or censored from what you have to say, what you can't say. But then I've realized that it doesn't work out because even when I try to engage with the organization and leadership internally, because I can hear now some are saying why I've never raised issues internally. When I was a leader of the province in KwaZulu-Natal, I made a speech in one of the congresses where I raised some of these particular issues, especially when I felt that the party is moving away from its values of fairness and freedom specifically. And I've raised these issues in my speech at the Congress. And no one can come now and say, I've never raised these issues, because the question is, if you raise issues at a Congress, the top structure of the party, then where can you raise issues then if someone can come and say you never raised them internally? I've raised these issues in terms of how sometimes legal commission has been used to target individuals within the organization, how people are being censored from what they can say. I can make an example during COVID-19, for example, when Mahashule Ghana, he had an opinion on how army were handling people who were out during COVID-19. And he was censored, brought before FLC, charged. He was even found guilty for something. I believe it was his own opinion, and the party should have respected his own opinion. So these are just an simple example where I felt the party actually lost really the direction, and I felt now it's just a mess. But I was willing to give the party an opportunity to engage. Hence, I said, let me remove myself from legislature, which was a paying position. And I felt, let me just become an ordinary member where I can able to sit on leadership and engage leadership on these particular issues. But unfortunately, on Friday, I received an email from Helen where she was basically saying to me, I must stop to make public statements around issues I was raising. And she specifically said, I must stop making public and unreasonable disparaging statement. But bottom line is, she's not saying what I'm talking about is not true. She's just saying it's unreasonable. So it doesn't make sense to me. So I felt this organization is not prepared to listen. So it didn't make sense for me to remain as a member.
Was that your breaking point, Mr. Mncwango? Perhaps just give us clarity on that. At that stage, after that correspondence, I mean, it sounds like you were still prepared to stay on after your resignation from the legislature. But with that interaction with Helen Zille, was that a breaking point?
it was a breaking point because the intention basically was to engage leadership. Hence, I said, let me step back because the problem we face with politicians across all parties is that when we are deployed to particular positions, we end up so worried about salaries, where even if you are not happy with something, you can't say I'm not happy because you are scared that you might lose your job and you have family support. So I felt, let me remove myself from this paying position so that I can able to be myself and apply my own principles and engage with the party along the question that says, this party is drifting from its values. How can we engage? And I invited leadership to engage me on these issues. But instead of engaging me, they threatened me to say, if you continue with this statement, will be no choice but seize your membership. So meaning they're not prepared, basically, to engage us. But I can tell you, Mpo, there are many members in the organization who actually share my sentiments. But the problem is most of them, even senior leaders, are getting paid. They're deployed in parliament, they're councillors. They can't leave their job because once they say, we agree with Mncwango, they will be censored, they might be charged through FLC, they will be removed. They lose their job. So most of them are depending on this income.
So perhaps let me bring in a conversation that I had with KwaZulu-Natal leader Francois Rogers yesterday, where he made, he responded and reacted to the news of you leaving the party, saying that the party has never intimidated you. Let's just listen into what he had to say.
At all levels within our party, even when Zwakele was caucus leader in eThekwini, when he was provincial leader, he speaks his mind. And I cannot remember a time, there may have been opposition to some of his thoughts, but there's not a time that I can remember where the party or individuals intimidated him and silenced him. Quite the opposite.
So within that conversation, it really went further on to me asking him about how much room for growth does the DA have for black leaders? I mean, we've seen how many black leaders are leaving the party. I mean, you've been there for over 2 decades, speaking to a lot that you say that you've had to, sort of work with and navigate your way through.
Look, firstly, let me say, as you said, per decade, there was a time where James Self was a federal chairperson, and I must give credit to him and the CEO then. There was a time where the party was really concerned about new talent in terms of growing new leaders in the organization. And that is why today you've got people like myself, Bali, Lindy, where you can mention a lot, Ghana, Bongani Baloyi, all of us, most of us, have went through some kind of form of training to be where we are today. That's why I'm saying I'm grateful of those opportunities. But when you look today, there is no such anymore. So meaning the party has no interest in growing new breed of leaders who can take the party forward. So it's clearly saying the current leadership is just happy with the status quo. They're not prepared to grow anymore. I think it's a party that says, look, we are okay with being a party that is below 20%, and we don't prepared to move any further. But let me just respond to the issue Francois is saying. Look, Francois is a good man. I work with him a lot. He was my chairperson, he was a leader, and he was also a leader when I was a chief whip. And he's a good man. And unfortunately, I can tell you, Mpo, that I have no doubt that the statement that came out yesterday, it didn't come from him. I engaged Francois on Monday. We had an open discussion. He understood exactly my issues. And even on Wednesday, when I resigned, he was the first one to issue a statement when I resigned from legislature to say he wished me well. There was never anything negative from him on Wednesday. But soon as I had an issue with Helen over my statements and my issues raising around the values within the organization, that's when then I believe National drafted a statement under his name, and then he was forced, obviously, to defend it. He has no choice. He's a leader. He must defend the statement from National. So basically, I have no doubt that it didn't come from him. But what the party need to do, I'm no more there. But how I felt is the party have drifted away from the values which are critical. And I make example of how Masizole Ngasela in Western Cape has been victimized. Currently, as we speak, he's going through a disciplinary hearing while the same organization have referred him to Hawks. And I'm not saying he mustn't account for what is done if he's done something wrong. There are allegations, yes. And the question is, which right platform? You took documents, you gave it to Hawks, the Hawks must investigate. You can't then, while Hawks is investigating, and you are a party that believes in fairness, you believe in the rule of law, but you come and say, no, you're going to charge him internally. At the same time, while you're charging him internally, you are now calling for a motion against your own member in legislature who's a speaker. You are saying he must be removed through a motion of no confidence. How fair is that? You know, so these are the critical issues that are critical for DA to respond to. And the question is, you've got a deputy speaker in Western Cape who has been involved in some wasteful and irregular expenditure, and it's been found by independent investigation of that report. And the report is available. And the party to date have done nothing about deputy speaker. Why? I don't want to say it's because she's white, but the problem is, for me, it's a fairness issue to say you've got two members, one is deputy speaker, one is a speaker. You are acting on a speaker, but you're not willing to act on a deputy speaker. Why is that?
Yeah. With the number of black leaders leaving the Democratic Alliance, I mean, do you think, as one political analyst suggested, that the DA perhaps may have given up on the black vote? Do you think that could be true?
Look, I can agree with you. You know, Mpo, I will tell you something that once broke my heart. And the leader, Francois, is correct. I speak my mind in meetings. I've been like that ever since, and I've never changed. That is why no one can come and claim and say, whatever I'm saying today, I've never said it in meetings. There was a meeting, it was in Joburg, if I'm not mistaken, Mpo, where it was after Musi left. And in that meeting, I actually stood up and I said, I can't sit in this meeting. I have to leave because I was offended by the statement made by Helen. So in that meeting, Helen made a statement, recklessly so. He said, we have tried so many experiments with token leaders. It doesn't work. So basically, she was saying, we are not growing within the communities. So for that word used, token leaders. And Helen can't deny that because she even apologized. Because I said, I can't be in the meeting where you can use such a word. Because you are basically saying, even myself sitting here on federal executive, you are calling me a token leader. So I stood up, and those who are part of FedEx can attest to what I'm saying. And Helen even apologized after that meeting. I said, I can't be at meeting because you can generalize your statement, but I'm one of the black leaders in the organization. So when you are saying you have tried using token leaders, you are basically saying, even myself, I am a token leader.
Sure. One of the criticisms, of course, leveled against you by Francois Rogers, was the timing of your resignation, saying that it's a pure example of political opportunism because you went on a recent trip to Norway and you had already given your notice from the 15th, but you continued earning a salary. I mean, he came out guns blazing with those comments about what you, in fact, saying that using the DA for the trip.
Look, it's unfortunate, as I said. I doubt Francois would have wrote a statement, as I said earlier. It's true, I've resigned when I returned from Norway, and Francois was in Singapore on a study tour from his committee. And then when they returned, we left as a premier committee. It was part of the work of the committee that we were doing. And mind you, by that time, I was not, I didn't resign from legislature. I only resigned and gave notice. As I'm talking to you, since I gave notice, I'm attending legislative duties because I'm still employed by legislature. Legislature will have to pay me. How can they pay me if I sit at home? I gave notice. Any employer expects you to work when you resign. But there's a critical part. When I resigned from legislature, against the issue of principle in the DA, I've resigned on Wednesday. They welcomed my resignation from legislature They never raised any issue about the trip to Norway. Now, the question is, the institution that paid for the trip is legislature, where I resigned on Wednesday. And they never raised an issue as an issue of wasteful expenditure, etc. Why only when I resigned from a DA, then you come and say, oh, hold on, why you went to Norway? By the way, there's a question now. The issue here is, again, is a principle where I'm saying if the DA is a party of principle, they would have raised these issues when I've resigned from legislature, the very institution that paid for that trip. But also, let me say this, when you do a benchmarking exercise in other countries, it doesn't really mean when you leave the institution, you are living with knowledge. Whenever I can serve, I will still contribute to this country. I can go to NGOs, I can go to private sector, I can come back to politics. I will still be serving people of this country and this province, meaning whatever I've learned from benchmarking, there will still be benefit to people of this province. But also, next year, there will be trips arranged because benchmarking is taking stage where legislature arranged these trips a while ago. Now, when we left South Africa, for example, I wasn't aware that I'm going to resign from the DA. But even if I was aware I'm going to resign from the DA, I would have still went because it was part of the duty. I wasn't resigned by that time. So how can you expect me to go? And next year when they go to these trips, it's the end of the term. The DA members will be traveling to overseas during this benchmarking next term. But they won't say, no, now it's end of the term. What's the point of going through this benchmarking exercises? Yeah. They will go, as Professor was there, even himself. So I don't understand really why they believe it's an issue when you resign from a DA, but it's not an issue when you resign from legislature, where whoever paid for this trip.
You give examples about working with NGOs, maybe returning to politics. The DA says you're going to Action SA.
Look, that's their assumption and the perception they're having. I can confirm that there's been engagement with many parties, and there are parties approaching me. The NGOs approaching me saying, look, we want to work with you, private sector. Some people are saying, look, we would like to work with you. We need your leadership in our companies. I have those offers, and even political parties, some are engaging with me, and some are labeling me as saying, you are going to the ANC, some are saying you're going to the IFP, some are saying you're going to Action SA. But at the end of the day, I will make a decision. Just in a few days, I will have to make a decision whether I stay in politics or not. But I can tell you and confirm to the viewers that I still have a passion for politics. I still believe I can contribute to this country. But whoever I will join, it will be a party where I feel it's aligned with my values, and I am clear in terms of the principle that this organization, whoever it will be, is a party that is prepared to unite South Africans. But I strongly believe that we'll never build this country when we're divided. And there's no way I can join any organization that seeks to divide us along gender or racial lines. I will never do that.
Very well. Thank you so much for giving us your views there. Former DA KwaZulu-Natal Chief Whip Mncwango confirming that he has parted ways with the party. Thank you for your time.